know how to have a
Fine.
conversation.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
you can vouch. Shut up while I'm talking, right? I asked you a fucking yes or no question. All right, Haiti, will you fucking shut him up?
Jack.
Yeah. So I just wanna respond.
Otangelo!
Resident Bear Wrestler, Gus. Yo, Otangelo, what's up, buddy?
Did you come to answer Jack's question?
What question?
I believe it's about predictions and hypothesis under the Christian worldview or something.
Jack, ask the question already. Jack.
Well, it turns out Otangelo was trying to say that he was engaging in some kind of abductive inference. But I don't really understand how he thinks an explanatory hypothesis explains without predicting the phenomenon in question.
Seems to be a real problem for
Well,
you
Jack,
if you can't address.
Jack, as I said, and you interrupted me, we should expect under the God hypothesis to find blueprint machines and factories in nature. Since they have been encountered, the God hypothesis has been confirmed.
No, because I don't see why it's more probable on the God hypothesis that we should see such things. Right? It seems to me like if there was a God, he might choose to make any kind of world. Right? He might choose to not make a world at all, or make a world without living things, make a world, just filled with marbles, right? All of those seem equally consistent. Doesn't seem like any is more probable than any other. So that's what I'm asking you to demonstrate.
Well, we can go with that, and in the no God hypothesis, there would be no physical world at all. Since we are here, God exists.
No, you haven't established that if there was no God, there wouldn't be a world, right? You need an argument for that. Seems to me that without a God, we might have all different kinds of worlds. There's no logical inconsistency there that you've shown. So you need some kind of argument to show that in order for there to be a world, there needs to be a God. And if that's the case, then you don't need intelligent design arguments, right? About complex life and DNA and coding systems and all that, right? You just need a straightforward cosmological argument. So if you think there's a good cosmological argument, feel free to present it, because I'm not aware of one.
Yeah. The thing is that under the no God hypothesis, well, there is, first of all, I agree that there is no logical contradiction. It's not about something logical or not. It is about what is possible under the no God hypothesis. And you would have to be able to explain how no mechanism whatsoever could cause a universe into existence, fine-tune the expansion rate of the Big Bang, and instantiate the laws of physics. And I think that is not possible if you have no agency to do so, because there could be all kind of outcomes which would not be, which there would be not a life permitting universe, or no universe at all as the result in the big majority. So it is more likely that intelligence was involved in actually creating the world.
Yeah, it sounds like you're making an abductive inference. Is that what you're...
Yeah.
Yeah, but so are you agreeing that the hypothesis of an agent, of a divine agent, doesn't predict the outcome in question?
As you yourself said, that under the God hypothesis we could expect any kind of a universe, and I say, even if I go with that, which I actually do not agree with, because You cannot have any universe with under any circumstances. It has to have certain conditions met. As I said previously, the expansion rate would have to be just right. Otherwise, you eventually would have a recollapse and then no universe whatsoever. But
So
the
what?
thing is that under the no God hypothesis, anything eventually, if that would be the case, any kind of parameters could be instantiated, which then would be, as a result, you wouldn't have any universe at all or a non-life permitting universe. And that would be a far more likely outcome rather than a life permitting universe.
You see, I don't understand where you're getting this probability from, right? Because I don't see why anything is more probable on the God hypothesis than on the no God hypothesis. I haven't seen you demonstrate how assuming one or the other predicts any outcomes as more likely than any other outcomes. That's what I'm trying to get you to explain.
Well, the thing is that I am working with what science has unraveled, and I'm not making up when I am saying that the universe is finely adjusted. This is what science has discovered, and that's what I work with.
But
Yeah,
that's equally
and
likely under both
yeah, question
hypotheses.
is, why does the existence of a God predict a finely tuned universe rather than a coarsely tuned universe? As far as I can see, it doesn't. And so
Yeah,
that's
I made already the analogy that when you see someone winning 200 times in a row the lottery, then it is to be expected that he rather cheated rather than had good luck. So that would be an analogy to the situation in the universe where we have thousands of parameters which are just right and finely tuned to have a life permitting universe.
well, that seems to be presupposing background knowledge of the kind of agents that we know exist, right? So I don't think the two cases are going to be analogous, because in the case of the God hypothesis, we don't know that, we don't have any reason to think, as far as I can judge, that he would have the kinds of motivations that we attribute to human agents, right? You need an independent argument that he's likely to have those motivations, right? So in the
No,
absence
I
of an
don't.
argument
Yeah,
like
I don't
that,
think.
right, you're not going to be able to make that kind of an inference. So what I want you to show me is how it is that if, let's grant for the sake of argument that there's like finely tuned physical constants, right? I'm just trying to understand, do we agree that postulating a God, right, doesn't predict a finely tuned universe any more than postulating a non-God, right?
Yeah, I don't agree with that because under the no God hypothesis, you should be expecting any kind of parameter because there is no restriction. There could be anything, and the big majority would be not life permitting. Under the God
Why is that
hypothesis,
different from the God?
under the God hypothesis, we can expect that an intelligent creator has intentions, will to create things for his own purposes and to create the right parameters to have a life permitting universe.
Wait, you're saying that a divine agent is more likely to produce life than a universe without a divine agent. That's what you're saying.
No, you don't have a universe. What you need to explain is a life permitting universe. And what I am saying is that under the no God hypothesis, we shouldn't expect the existence of any universe whatsoever. But if we entertain that hypothesis that eventually there were some kind of universe generating conditions beyond the physical universe, then these conditions they would be free to generate any kind of parameters, and that is the hypothesis of the multiverse, where there would be basically an unlimited number of non-life permitting universes, and eventually amongst them there would be ours,
Wait.
which is life
Okay, so
permitting.
I'm not understanding this. So it sounds like what you're saying is something like this. If we don't posit a God, right, the set of possible universes which are life permitting is very small.
To our knowledge.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Now I'm not seeing why, if we posit a God, that the same doesn't hold true in that case, because I don't see any kind of universe that could exist in the non-God case as being inconsistent with the God case, right? So if there are more coarsely tuned universes than finely tuned ones in the non-God case, why is that not true in the God case? Couldn't a God exist
No, the odds,
of all the different
they
types of worlds a God can create? If it's the case that there are more coarsely tuned types of worlds that he could create than finely tuned ones, then you'd have the same expectation on both the God hypothesis and the non-God hypothesis. So that's what I'm trying to get you to explain.
Well, first of all, the odds to have a life permitting universe, they are what they are. They do not depend on God existing or not. Now the question is, what is the better explanation for a universe which meets precisely the parameters that it has to have to be life permitting, and then actually is instantiated? Is it better expected, or is it better explained by an agent which knows these parameters and through his power and intelligence instantiates thousands of parameters which are just right? Or is it better explained by no agent whatsoever and by blind stochastic luck? And that's what I am saying. That's why I made the previous analogy to the lottery winner. If the guy wins 200 times the lottery, it is more likely that he cheated rather than that he had luck. And the same is with the universe. It is more likely that there was an agent which instantiated the situation rather than not.
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question, right? Because what I'm concerned with is this point. Sounds like you're saying the reason why a life permitting universe without a God is improbable is because if we were to enumerate all the different possible universes, right, that there could be without a God, right, only a very small portion of them would be life permitting. And therefore, with no God, right, a life permitting universe is improbable, right? Now, what I'm asking is, why is it the case that the same thing doesn't hold true in the divine agent hypothesis? Because it seems to me, what are all the types of universes that a divine agent could create, right?
Yeah,
Well,
it is
presumably he could
unlikely
create
equally.
he could create pretty much all the same different combinations that exist in the non-divine agent case, right? There'd be a small proportion of them which would be life permitting, and there'd be a vast proportion, much greater, right, than the small proportion that are life permitting, which are not life permitting, right, which we might call coarsely tuned or what have you, right? And so in that case, it seems like if we're just talking about the proportion of life permitting universes that are equally consistent with both hypotheses, right, it seems like the two are on a par. And I haven't seen you address that. So are you agreeing with that or not?
I think I already made my case. I have nothing to add to it. If you don't understand it, then I cannot help you further.
Okay, did anybody
Okay?
understand whether Otangelo agrees that that a life permitting universe is just as improbable given a divine agent as no divine agent? Did anybody understand? Because if the answer
I
is
already
no,
answered, and I
if the
said
answer
yes,
is
the odds are the same. It doesn't depend if God
okay,
exists
so
or
the odds
not.
are the same. Is that right?
Yes, the odds are the same.
Okay, great. So now we agree that a life-permitting universe is equally improbable, given the God hypothesis and given the no God hypothesis. You know, if we're just evaluating it in terms of the set of worlds that um, that could be designed by such an agent, or the set of different possible universes that could exist without an agent. They're basically the same, two same sets, right? And the proportion of life permitting to non-life permitting ones is basically the same in both cases.
The
So
odds do not change. I
yeah,
said that
great. Okay, so
already.
we agree
The
on that.
difference,
So now
the
the
question
question
is,
is, wait, I'm not done. So now the question is, if you're drawing an abductive inference, right, it must be that you think there's some explanatory virtue that the God hypothesis has, or some set of explanatory virtues that the God hypothesis has that outweigh whatever explanatory virtues there are in the non-God hypothesis. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to. That's what I want you to address now. What are the virtues you're appealing to?
okay, I will give you a syllogism here. I will quote here. The existence of a life permitting universe is very improbable on naturalism and very likely on theism. 2. A universe formed by naturalistic unguided means would have its parameters set randomly, and with high probability there would be no universe at all. The fine-tuned parameters for the right expansion rate of the universe would most likely not be met. In short, a randomly chosen universe is extraordinarily unlikely to have the right conditions for life. 3. A life-permitting universe is likely on theism, since a powerful, extraordinarily intelligent designer has the ability for foresight and knowledge of what parameters, laws of physics, and fine-tuned conditions would permit a life-permitting universe. Under Bayesian terms, design is more likely rather than non-design. Therefore, the design inference is the best explanation for a finely tuned universe.
Yeah, that just seemed like a question-begging argument to me, but in any case, it's not an answer to my question. So what I'm trying to understand is, what are the explanatory virtues that you're appealing to say that one is a better explanation than the other?
Yeah, God is the better explanation because he can desire to create a life permitting universe. He can have the knowledge, intelligence, and power to know which parameters that would have to be just right, and he can instantiate them. And no intelligence has no goals, no aims, and therefore, eventually, if it would eventually be able to create the right expansion rate to have a universe, that expansion rate would, with high probability, be to have a a void universe without stars, without atoms, without anything, rather than one which would have the right fine-tune expansion rate to then have the conditions to have the right forces permitting the origin of atoms, stars, and planets.
So did you not understand what my question was?
I think I understood your question, and I thought that I precisely addressed what you were asking for.
What is it that you thought that I
He's gone.
asked? It's just amazing.
To know what are the conditions for there to be life. Just this universe? There can't be any other sort of life? Do you need the conditions of this universe to have the life of angels and demons and the Christian God? Do the laws of physics have to be in place for that sort of life to exist? If that's not the case, why can't there be other forms of life? If the parameters of the universe were different, he's assuming that there can only be one sort of life, but his own worldview says no, there are other forms of life beyond just biological life that we know.
Did Angelo leave?
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw him pop in for like 1 second and then leave again. I don't know why.
I asked him what explanatory virtues he was appealing to favor the God hypothesis over the non-God hypothesis, and he spouted a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't what I had in mind by explanatory virtues, which are things like the explanation is more parsimonious, it's more ontologically economical, it's has a greater track record of past predictive success, it integrates with our background knowledge, right? He just said a bunch of stuff that didn't seem to be an answer to that question. So then I said, did you not understand the question I asked you? And he said, I think I understood the question that you asked me very well and gave a very good answer to that. And so then I said, well, what was the question you think I asked? And he left.
That was a good impression, though.